Alkatawantok, you had a couple of Pacific waves from RNZ Pacific, ni Koroi Hawkins. Coming up, Australia PNG security deal signing delayed.
China has been an enduring friend of PNG for the last 50 years.
Also, voter registration closes in Tonga, and
it's not empty space, it's actually home, it's actually a place where people have lived and fished and existed for thousands of years.
Indigenous communities to be engaged in Melanesian Ocean Reserve. In Papua New Guinea, Prime Minister James Marape is rebuffing any question of China wanting to scuttle a new security deal the country is brokering with Australia. It's been widely reported the Puk Puk Treaty would be signed this week by Prime Minister James Marape and Anthony Albanese in Port Moresby as the country celebrates 50 years of independence. Instead, the leaders signed a joint communique. Tewila Fuatai has more from the leaders' joint press conference this week.
The joint statement from the two Prime Ministers says the new treaty will elevate their nation's defence relationship. James Marape says it's also important to internal security issues in Papua New Guinea.
We don't have so much of external threat, we have internal security issues. Part of this construct in defence treaty is not an isolated defence treaty program. Working with our police, working with our judiciary, working with the full gamut of the law and justice sector.
Anthony Albanese says the treaty, which uses the Talai-derived Tokpisin word for crocodile, was requested by Papua New Guinea.
It contains a mutual defence commitment under which both countries recognise that both Australia and PNG have a mutual interest in our security.
Mr Marape says the deal will help build capacity across both nations' defence forces and will increase interoperability.
If you need more manpower to recruit into your Australian Defence Force, then Papuan citizens are available for them to recruit and serve as Australian Defence Force personnel. So mutually beneficial both.
And while Australian media have painted the lack of an inked agreement as a failure, both Mr Albanese and Mr Marape says the hold-up is procedural.
We will go through our respective cabinet processes and expect to finalise the signing of the treaty, the words of which have been agreed in coming weeks.
James Marape is also rebuffing any question that China could use the delay to scuttle the deal.
China has been an enduring friend of PNG for the last 50 years. We maintain one China policy. But China also knows clearly that in as far as security, we have our security partners of choice. And so this is in no way, shape and form Chinese have any hand in saying don't do this.
The two countries are due to meet at the annual Australia-Papua New Guinea ministerial meeting. Australia is hosting this year, and while a date is yet to be confirmed, Mr Albanese says they are looking at October. Both leaders say the agreement will be discussed at the meeting.
The official registration period for voters in Tonga closed on Thursday as preparations continue towards the November general election. According to Matangi Tonga, provisional figures released by the Electoral Commission in February showed more than 60,000 voters on the electoral roll. Updated figures are expected to be released on Friday. I spoke with our correspondent in Nuku'alofa, Kalafi Moala, on Thursday about the end of voter registration.
Yes, it does close today, although the announcement is that if there are latecomers, they'll make way for that. I think what they're doing is they're trying to encourage people not only to register, new people, but to actually vote. Because in the last election, there were 60% actually of those that registered voted. And so that's quite a good. They thought that's a good thing. The other thing too is that in Tonga we don't have a law that requires those that register to vote. I know in other countries that it's a law. If you're going to be registering, you've got to vote. And not in Tonga. So people are free to choose whether they'll vote or not.
And I know in the islands, although the official election period starts in a defined period, things will be already being talked about. How are we looking in terms of candidates that might be signalling their intention or might be interested in registering or putting their hat in the ring this year?
The election office have already announced that the 20th of November will be the election date. But already there are quite a number of candidates that have declared they're going to be running. And very interestingly, quite a number of those candidates are new ones, people that have never stood for office before. And quite a number of them are from overseas, either from the Tongan community in Australia, America. I know this is one or two from New Zealand that have declared they're going to be running. So that's an interesting thing. And what it's showing is that some of these people are feeling that in this election, there's real hope for them to get in. That people are very open-minded about who they vote for in this particular election.
And just remind me, and for our listeners who aren't familiar with Tonga, what seats are available here? What will they be contesting for?
Well, there are 17 seats for what we call the people's representatives. And that's anyone can stand for that. Anyone over 21, and both men or women. And then there are 9 seats for the nobles, and that's only for nobles representatives. There are 33 noble titles, and so those 33 nobles will choose 9 representatives. And then, of course, the rest of the population, and you're looking at about 60,000 who are voters, will be electing 17 representatives.
Now, thank you. Now, the current Prime Minister has had quite a short run-up. We had a change of leadership. Just update us on the situation with Dr. Eke and the no-confidence motions against the former Prime Minister, and where that is all at politically now in terms of the public debate.
Toward the end of last year, there was the vote of no confidence that came up. And the Prime Minister, instead of allowing him and his government to go through the vote of no confidence, he decided to resign instead. And so they opened the way for Parliament then to appoint a Prime Minister. And so Dr. Eke was appointed as Prime Minister. And he brought in himself people that were not a part of the previous government. And so you're looking at about 9.5, 10 months now that they have been in office, and of course it has given them a lot of opportunity as being just a short time in office to campaign. In one of the things that the previous government, Prime Minister and government, have been complaining about is that they have brought a lot of allegations about corruption and things that was promised by the previous government that they haven't done. And so every time they are saying something, whether it's in Parliament or whether it's at the press conference, there's a lot of blame, finger pointing at the previous government. And of course, the previous government have always responded and say all you have to do is look at the books. It's been audited. There's no sign whatsoever or evidence of any misdeeds or funds that have been used for something else. So that goes on. But to me, being here in Tonga and watching this going on in election time, that's just a very typical election where the finger pointing between one party or one side and another. And so it's going to be a very interesting election.
And in terms of the election issues this year, we obviously have been following quite closely some of the increased interest or more hands-on approach, if I can put it that way, from His Highness the King in some of the politics and administration of Tonga. Is that one of the election issues? What are people talking about, and what do people care about?
Yeah, definitely. It's been 15 years since the reform of 2010. In that reform, instead of the king having the power to appoint government, or the prime minister and government, that power was given to the parliament. So a prime minister is elected by parliament, and then the prime minister appoints his cabinet, and that's government. That is a a major shift from the king being in power to not only appoint government, but to actually oversee and run government, to having parliament do that. And the other thing too, there was a major increase in 2010 of the number of people's representatives. It used to be 9, now there's 17. And so they have the majority in parliament all the time. However, part of the difficulties, of course, over the past 15 years is that these people's representatives are never united. In fact, if they could get their act together and be united, they'll be legislating, making laws, and voting on issues, and they will always be in the majority. But they haven't been. And so the issue this time, and it has been brought up in public, is that are we going the right direction, making Tonga more democratic? Is that the right direction we're going? Or should we consider returning some of the powers to the king? In other words, going back to the time before the reform. And so that's going to be, I believe, a major issue in this election.
Vanuatu's Environment Minister says there will be no commercial fishing close to the shore within the border of the recently announced Melanesian Ocean Reserve initiative. The reserve will operate across the exclusive economic zones of Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea and New Caledonia, becoming one of the largest protected areas in the world. Its proponents say they will also work with indigenous communities to watch for illegal fishing activity. Caleb Fotheringham has more.
It was announced earlier this year by Solomon Islands Prime Minister at the UN Oceans Conference in Nice, France. Vanuatu's Environment Minister, Ralph Regenvanu, says the reserve bans tuna fishing fleets within 12 nautical miles off the edge of island groups.
No industrial fishing and no deep-sea mining. So, for example, in Vanuatu, the Melanesian Ocean Reserve covers our internal archipelagic waters plus 12 nautical miles off the edge of the island group.
Mr. Regenvanu says a lot of the area that the reserve covers is already under some form of protection.
It's not the whole EEZ. It's areas that have been identified. So in the Solomons, there's already a large area already protected. In Vanuatu, 12 nautical miles. By law, industrial fishing is restricted already. So it's simply proclaiming something that already exists. The largest area is in New Caledonia, which by law, their entire EEZ fits those two criteria.
Legal consultant Phil Takini, working on the Melanesian Ocean Reserve, says it's based on the philosophy that the ocean is home.
It's based on the philosophy that the space that we have in the oceans, it's not empty space. It's actually home. It's actually a place, in Pidgin, a place where people have lived and fished and existed for thousands of years.
Mr. Tagini says currently there are blind spots in the monitoring of commercial fishing, which is heavily reliant on observers on board fishing vessels. He says it can be helped by local fishermen in the area.
And all you need is to be able to give them a mobile phone. They take photos and they load it up on a database, and that gets interpreted, and we can tell that this is actually innocent passage or this is actually illegal fishing boat.
Minister Regenvanu says tuna fishing is a major source of revenue for Melanesia, which is why commercial fishing will still be allowed in exclusive economic zones, just not close to shore.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, Luki Mufala next time more.